Man, is there a faster growing club right now than City Kickboxing? I mean, when you take a look at what they accomplished at UFC 259 with Adesanya taking the opportunity to go fight at light heavyweight, try to take on Jan Blachowicz, all the power to him. You can't hate the man for trying. It was an absolutely amazing fight. And when you look at what Kai Kara France did to kind of push his, name out in the flyweight division, I think this is looking like a really, really big camp, probably the biggest camp in 2020. And you still have Sanford MMA and all these other guys, but they really stood out as kind of the fastest growing. And Shane Young, we could have watched Brad Riddell last week. Unfortunately, that fight fell out to SB. We've been waiting a long time to see him, right? So that would have been a ranked fight, if anything. So right now, City Kickboxing riding on the shoulders of Shane Young. And I think this is a big fight for him. I think Omar Morales is going to get a lot of credit. 10-1 fighter. Giga, probably one of the fighters I talk about the most, right? Giga Chikadze. He's got a great kickboxing background. He's got amazing takedown defense. So I think in that sense, like, at least at this tier, Omar got his first loss in that fight, and it was a great fight in my opinion. And Giga Chikadze is never a dull fight. Let's be real. And I think that Shane Young kind of brings the same thing to the table, right? He's a great kickboxer. Look at his previous fights. I think it's overshadowed by the Ludwig Klein knockout. That was a pretty big finish, and that was less than 2 minutes into the first round. But when you go back, right? Debut against Alexander Volkanovski took him to a decision, right? And then you have 2 straight wins against Rolando Dai, and Austin Arnett. Now, I want to touch on that Austin Arnett fight, right? Because let's talk about the fighter we saw in that fight. Leg kicks. He was throwing good body kicks, good body strikes. I think what I liked the most about him was the head movement. And even Joe Rogan, without even, talking about Israel and the feints and the feints and the feints, he was actually doing it in the Shane Young fight. So you can see that these feints and the way they kickbox is actually very much a City Kickboxing thing. I mean, the feints were beautiful. The head movement was there. And man, the way he can land his jab, like he gets it in there. And I think that when you saw him line up 2 to 3 punches in that fight, they were landing clean. He was pushing him against the fence. This man does not stop coming forward. And I think in that Ludwig Klein fight, maybe he got a little excited. Maybe there was a little bit of a moment there where he could have been patient to where he was, in our fight, because I think what you saw there was good lateral and forward pressure, but at the same time, like, I don't think he was rushing, and I think he was able to pick his shots. And maybe that Ludovic is a much better striker than Arnett, so that's where he maybe took an L. But at the same time, this happens in MMA, right? You got to learn from those lessons. And in this case, I mean, let's even look at his previous record. He really has never been finished via knockout till then. So this is definitely a fighter that we can keep an eye on. He's still so young, and he's on the way up in a division that, we see a lot of guys on the come up, but at the end of the day, all that extra, bulk at the bottom is what makes it exciting to watch the prelims, even the early fights, sometimes on bigger cards, TV cards, things like that. These are the guys you want to see get that opportunity. They're exciting, they're technical, and, exciting fights, win or lose, right? And I think that Omar Morales is going to love to stand. He has shown that in the past. Like, his standing capability is very much there. Now, when you look at the odds, I mean, if you're a big fan of seeing those 10-1 records, I mean, Shane Young's coming in at plus 175 right now versus that minus 210. And so you can see where people are, definitely putting some weight on that knockout that he suffered. And I think Omar Morales in those last fights that we've seen, durability is there. He can definitely in the loss take it to a distance and make it very close. So I think that's where, Shane Young's definitely at a disadvantage when it comes to the, aesthetics of his fight. But go back and watch some tape. And I mean, this guy's very technical. He's quick. And I think Omar Morales can get pieced up if he doesn't, maybe use the takedown a bit and try to get him up the fence. And I really believe that footwork's going to come into play. If he's falling too much for these feints and he's taking these body shots and he's taking these kicks, Shane Young has some, surprising power and can try and come in there and finish you off. So I think that's where you kind of have to judge, based on your durability and your cardio. I think that's really what's going to come into play, because if this is a 3-round fight, I can see Shane Young definitely going to 3 rounds, no problem. And if it's on the feet, he's definitely going to try to piece you up. And on Omar's side, I mean, try to sneak in that takedown. I mean, I think you definitely have shown that you love to stand, but in terms of game plan, I don't see any way where that isn't the better option to try and just push it against the fence, grind it out, try and work some submissions, and force Shane Young to use his jiu-jitsu to get back to his feet, and try to work him against the fence. That's where you drain time. You don't want to stand with the guy who can go a long time and piece you up a little bit here and there. That's what makes close fights, and that's where you don't want to go into the decision either, right? But at the same time, when you look at the odds, when you look at the record, you look at the previous fights, clearly there's a stance via Vegas and the public where that fight's clearly being bet on one way. So if you got a chance and you want to take it on your boys from City Kickboxing New Zealand, I mean, now's your chance, because at that price, you'll get some good money.